Happy Halloween, everyone! I don't know why I'm even bothering. We don't even celebrate Halloween in Australia. We suck. A few months ago, I made a video talking about 10 things that scared the hell out of me as a child. A lot of you in the comments told me that you were scared of the very same things, and it was really cool to know that I wasn't the only one who was scared. And a lot of you didn't listen when I told you not to watch DYU Fantasy for fuck. Well, guess what? I remembered some more stuff that scared me as a kid. Yes, I was a very pathetic child, I know. So in this video, to celebrate the holiday of Halloween that no one in my country celebrates, I'm going to be sharing 5 more childhood traumas that scared me as a kid. Ooh. Oh, but before we start, for anyone that watched the last video I did, which you should really go check out now if you haven't already, please. I mentioned this Powerpuff Girls game that used to scare me all the time that I never was able to find. Well, I found it. Or at least I think I did. Powerpuff Girls All Monsters Attack. This looks way too familiar to me to not be it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this was the game, despite the absence of any actual meteors. But hey, red and black, ominous music, and destruction. It checks out. Anyway, on with the list. I've mentioned this one before, but I figure it was worth a further explanation. Beast Machine's Transformers was one of the 3 Transformers shows that roped me into the franchise, but it was radically different in contrast to the other 2 shows. That being that it was actually good. I'm just kidding, Cybertron fans, please don't hurt me. It was incredibly dark for a kid's cartoon, boasting bold ideals and ambition, containing shadow-coded environments with terrifyingly designed characters, and an incredibly sinister villain. But none of that scared me. At all. But these things did. This didn't scare me. But these things... Out of this house! Out of this house! I don't know what it was exactly about the Viacom molds that bothered me so much. Maybe it was the lack of any humanoid features and yet supposed sentience that creeped me out. The whirring sharp blades fronting their offense. Or maybe it was the fact that they had a butthole for Rat Trap to plug into. Wait, maybe not that last part. Whatever it was, the moles didn't show up very often, which I am quite thankful for. But whenever they did show up, I was absolutely terrified. If Megatron had just used these against the Maximals the entire show, I probably wouldn't have ever gotten into Transformers. Assholes. One concept that always used to spook me was the end of the world. The apocalypse. But not a quick and painless one. Instead, one where we all have to wait until we eventually die and have to decide how to spend our final moments. Much like how the dinosaurs perished. The concept of knowing your fate was imminent is one I have to say that has always both intrigued and worried me, especially as a kid. I mean, I'd be totally fine if the world ended nowadays. At least if I die, Jake Paul goes with me. Now, going on from that, I was a die-hard fan of The Simpsons when I was younger, owning a large collection of Simpsons DVDs that I would regularly watch. I even watched the Treehouse of Horror episodes, and surprisingly none of them got to me, despite the fact that The Simpsons had some genuinely terrifying and effed up episodes. Like that goddamn clown episode. Or this.
Bad touch! Bad touch! Stranger danger!
None of them got to me, all but for one, which isn't actually that scary in comparison to the others. The short "Life's a Glitch, Then You Die" focused on the infamous Y2K glitch of the late 90s. For all you young ones who have no idea what that is, don't worry because I wasn't around for it either. It was a glitch that occurred on computers before the year 2000, where computers would encounter errors trying to load a date past 1999 and cause havoc because of it. The Treehouse episode focuses on this glitch but exaggerates the hell out of its effects. For at the beginning of it, Homer was tasked with fixing his computer at the power plant which had the error, but he forgets because he's Homer Simpson, releasing the Y2K virus to the world. What resulted was essentially the apocalypse as the world plummeted into chaos following the new year. Like, to the point of even the milk being broken because for some reason it has a computer chip in it. To be fair, this episode is rather comedic in a regular Simpsons fashion, but it freaked me the hell out when I was younger. And I watched it way after the year 2000, so it wasn't the potential truth of it that worried me. It was just seeing the town of Springfield plunge into chaos, and the desperation of people leaving the planet on rockets. What followed was Lisa having to choose only one of her family members to bring with her, which is not a difficult decision for her, and then watching Homer and Bart frantically trying to find a way off the planet, only to end up on a rocket heading straight for the sun. The episode ends with their heads exploding in the vacuum of space. It was just really unnerving to me. It was certainly far from the scariest Treehouse of Horror short, because there is plenty worse out there, but it was Life's a Glitch that really got to me when I was a kid. Old cartoons are messed up. I'm sure the recent release of Cuphead has renewed interest in classic 1930s and 1940s animation, but I'm not talking your usual Mickey Mouse or Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. I'm talking even more obscure. Though the animation is incredibly impressive for the time, a lot of older short films just give you this feeling of unease. I actually grew up with a lot of these classic cartoons, including Popeye, Bugs Bunny, and even Betty Boop. All on these magical things called VHS tapes that are rarer than a blockbuster video nowadays. My parents gave me a DVD containing a plethora of classic cartoons that I used to watch regularly when I was just older than a toddler. I vividly remember watching this disc repeatedly, however I no longer have it in my possession, which is a shame. I scoured the internet looking for the DVD but couldn't find it. I assume it was one of those bargain bin DVDs with no real official record. However, there was one animation that I remember that was on the disc that particularly stuck out to me, and that was 1934's Jack Frost cartoon. This short features Jack Frost not as Tumblr fan art material, but instead as this weird elf thing who has a palette filled with paint that he uses to color things, I think. Not so hot now, is he? We're introduced to this little bear, who is our protagonist, and his mother, who is an asshole. Because the bear's mother is an abusive shit, he decides to run away from home. He shouts at his mum, and then proceeds to tiptoe out of his house quietly. Yeah, that makes sense. It just so happens that as this bear makes his escape, he runs into Jack Frost, who warns him to head back home before something bad happens. What the fuck? After some more drug trips, hey, what do you know? Something bad happens. The Ice King shows up and terrorizes our protagonist. And this here is the bit that spooked me so. Grizzly bear. I don't know why, but these candy cane bars and Jack Frost's stupid face really got to me. It wasn't even this guy, just the helplessness of this poor bear. I mean, it wasn't even supposed to be scary, but I didn't know that back then. For those wondering how it ends, the bear gets out and Jack Frost takes him home. The end. Yeah, cartoons were a lot simpler back then. From this pic, I'm looking at a very obscure show from my childhood that I bet none of you have ever heard of unless you're Australian. Johnson and Friends. This was an Australian kids TV show that aired for 5 years with 78 episodes, featuring a cast of toys living in a kid's bedroom and going on adventures and stuff. I don't know, I don't really remember it. All I know is that it looked a lot better when I was younger. It's very easy to tell that it's just a bunch of people in suits nowadays, but back then it actually looked pretty cool. I had very low expectations as a child. The cast of characters included a pink elephant named Johnson, a truck called Diesel, and whatever the hell this thing is supposed to be. I remember very little about the show, aside from one episode entitled Under the Bed. In one of the very early episodes, the team of toys investigate a source of noise coming from under the bed in the room. At nighttime. In the darkness. Oh no.
Was that you, Johnson?
No. Then who was it? It was me! What the blithering blazes!
The thing that scared me in this show was this thing. I was petrified of it. Wikipedia tells me his name is Alfred and apparently he's a water bottle. Somehow. But for me, all he was what I thought was under my bed every goddamn night. Come on, man, he's pretty spooky. I've never spoken to anyone else who knows what this show is due to its obscurity, so I don't know if I'm alone in my fear of this thing, but all I know is that I want it to get the hell away from me. And finally, a show that took me 8 years to find, and it was only when researching this video that I finally came across it, Freaky, a New Zealand show that has been the bane of my existence for several years of my childhood. This show is very hard to find and is listed on the Lost Media Wiki due to its insane obscurity, due to it never being released on home video. This may be because the show was freaking terrifying! How the hell did this even air? Luckily, some heroes uploaded a few clips of it onto YouTube, and so after many years of searching for this nightmare-inducing drug trip, I finally found it. I didn't watch this show very often, and I think I only watched a few episodes of it, and yet still remember the subject matter that scarred me for life. What this show was a collection of short episodes with some random experiencing something supernatural, akin to that of The Twilight Zone. Except shitty. This show scared the hell out of me when I was younger. I know essentially nothing about New Zealand, aside from their weird-ass accents. But if this is the kind of shit that goes down there, then I'm gonna stay the hell away. 2 episodes of the show in particular stand out to me. One was simply entitled Slide. It features generic kid number 37 at a water park who decides to be an absolute edgelord and choose to go down the very clearly closed slide, and so finds himself ending up in some sort of dinosaur world in which the world's shittiest 3D render of a pterodactyl exists. He gets chased by a caveman and then finds his way home, and then proceeds to keep going down water slides.
You went down the broken slide, didn't you? Well, apparently it's got some time warp thing in it.
Oh, okay. As you do. Then it ends with him getting eaten by a shark because the writers couldn't think of an ending. I don't remember the entirety of this episode, instead most of the beginning descent into the slide. I don't know why this one scared me so much, but I did find myself with an irrational fear of water slides for quite a while after. Yes, water slides, the scariest thing of all. The other episode that genuinely traumatized me was entitled Freak. Yes, these titles are almost as creative as my videos. This episode is very different to how I remember it. Essentially, we follow an arsehole school student named Dennis, who is performing a very shitty cosplay of Neo from The Matrix as a new student enters the class. One who for some reason always wears a motorcycle helmet. This becomes important later.
Good morning, class. You've got a new student joining you this morning. Now, his appearance is a little bit different, but I'm sure you're all mature enough to see past that and treat him as one of your peers.
Give me a break.
His name is
Martin.
It's essentially your typical comeuppance of a bully story.
I can't see over Martin's big head. Can you ask him to take his helmet off? Dennis, do you want to see the principal? Yes, please.
Wait, I was scared of this how? He spends the whole episode bullying this kid because of the helmet for no real reason aside from the fact that he's an asshole. The climax of this story sees Dennis setting his cooking class on fire, but the day is saved by Martin as his helmet comes in handy when smashing open a locked door. Our heroic bully does what he does best, and then Dennis takes off his helmet.
What did I tell you? Nothing but an attention-seeking show-off with a bad haircut.
Jesus Christ, call the police! You know, now that I look at it, it's a lot less scary than I remember it being. I mean, by the end of the episode, they become friends and— No, I'm not doing this, no. It's too scary. Now, of course, looking back on the show, it's absolutely terrible. The effects are laughably bad, the acting is atrocious, and it's just so very early 2000s. But when I was a kid, I didn't have the pleasure of knowing how incredibly fake it looked. But to be fair, for a supposed kid show, these episodes are pretty messed up. Apparently some of the other episodes that I never got to see are even worse. I was lucky to avoid seeing some of these. Like, what the hell? And so that's that. Another 5 or so things that haunted me as a kid. Let me know if any of those things scared you guys. I mean, I know they're a bit more obscure, but still. Wait, what was that? Billy! Billy, it's just you, man. I got scared there for a minute. I thought there was actually someone else in my house. Man, wouldn't that suck, eh? Anyway, happy Halloween, buddy.